After being transported to this world, you joined a two-person wilderness survival show. While the other contestants all chose initial gear like combat shovels and compasses, you went and picked a broken fishing rod that nobody cared about. The netizens all thought you were just putting on a show. After all, without a boat to go out to sea, a fishing rod is arguably the most useless tool. However, as the strongest wild fishing king on the surface in your past life, you weren't flustered at all. After choosing your tool, you then looked at your teammate, Zhao Xinqing. You saw her hesitate for a moment, then she chose a bag of seeds that, similarly, no one else wanted. Seeing this, the live comments scrolled even more furiously. One picks a fishing rod, the other picks seeds. Unbelievable. I'll bet a bag of chips they'll be out in less than a week. But you didn't pay any mind to the comments. Instead, you began to carefully observe your current environment. This was a vast island that no one had ever set foot on. The forest remained in its most primitive state. The moment you entered, you could feel a muggy airflow on your face. It was difficult to walk through the dense forest. It was also a downhill section of a coastal mountain range, and the ground was wet and slippery. You and Zhao Xinqing helped each other along the way, so you actually made good time. There were 2 instances of intimate physical contact. It made both you and Zhao Xinqing blush, but you both had to pretend not to notice. At only 20 years old, Zhao Xinqing was already a PhD. Her knowledge was incredibly extensive, and she wasn't at all fazed by the current environment, even making new discoveries from time to time. Look, a huntsman spider. Don't be afraid, even though this huntsman spider is big. It's actually very gentle and rarely attacks people on its own. On Zhao Xinqing's hand, a large, furry spider crawled up her arm, instantly causing waves of screams in the live chat. Look over there, there's a millipede. Better not touch it. Millipede secretions are toxic. See? That's a PhD for you. The wild fishing king learned a lot of useless new knowledge from the PhD. But soon enough, your own luck found its way to you. Splash, splash, splash. The sound of gurgling water came from a distance. Your eyes instantly lit up. Just as expected, it's easy to find a stream on the face of a coastal mountain range. And by following a stream, you can find a sufficiently large body of water. Where there's water, there are fish. You gripped the unextended fishing rod in your hand and led Zhao Xinqing through a grove of trees and down a slippery, low slope. The view suddenly opened up. Before you was indeed a meandering stream. The live chat, which had been a bit sparse, instantly filled with comments again. Holy crap, he was right. He found water just like that. Is luck actually a part of skill? While watching the live comments, you bent down and scooped up a handful of water from the stream, putting it in your mouth. You spit it out immediately. It's a little salty, but not much. But it's still best not to drink it. Seeing that you were about to get up and leave, Zhao Xinqing hesitated and asked in a low voice, is it really undrinkable? The forest was muggy and hot, and she had been sweating a lot while walking. Her once rosy lips were now a bit dry. You turned your head to look at her and explained patiently, we're too close to the coast here. It's normal for the water to have some salt in it. If you were dying of thirst, you could drink this. But there's definitely more fresh water downstream. Besides, this is raw water. If we have a choice, it's better to boil water before drinking. Zhao Xinqing nodded upon hearing this. Okay, I'll listen to you. I won't drink it for now. They had only been on the move for 2 hours. Although she felt thirsty, it was still bearable. Meanwhile, the live chat was still buzzing with discussion. Zubai's survival experience seems pretty solid. Oh, what if this streamer is a hidden expert? As you walked, the oppressive heat of the jungle constantly assaulted you, causing you to lose a lot of sweat. Both you and Zhao Xinqing felt increasingly thirsty, and your heads even began to feel dizzy. You had no time to pay attention to what was happening in the live chat, focusing solely on moving forward. The two of you followed the stream downstream for another 2 hours until you saw a steep slope. The intense sound of water was coming from below the steep slope. Your eyes lit up as you peered over the edge. Sure enough, you discovered a small waterfall, and below it, a deep pool. Energized, you led Zhao Xinqing down the slippery rocks beside the waterfall. Can we drink this? Zhao Xinqing asked, only then realizing that her voice was somewhat dry and hoarse. You took a sip and nodded, yes, it's fresh water. The layers of earth and soil are a natural filter, so the water upstream was slightly salty. But the water in this pool is fresh. Zhao Xinqing was overjoyed. Just as she was about to lean over and drink from the pool, you stopped her. What now? Zhao Xinqing felt a little wronged. She was so thirsty. You then pointed to the edge of the pool and said, look, what's that? Zhao Xinqing looked up and saw a tall coconut tree right by the pool. At the same time, the live comments were both amused and exasperated. There's a huge pool of water right in front of you. You're not seriously going to pick coconuts, are you? That tree must be over 10 meters tall. You're a spoiled rich kid, there's no way you know how to climb a tree. Drink coconuts? Zhao Xinqing looked at you, her tone uncertain. You nodded and said, coconut water is perfectly safe. Raw water isn't always, especially raw water in this humid jungle. It could contain pathogenic bacteria and viruses. You had already tasted it, the water was clear and sweet. While there was a risk, it was relatively low. If it were the wild fishing king, Subai from your past life, you would have dared to drink directly from this pool. But this body and Zhao Xinqing were clearly not strong enough. When there was a choice, drinking coconut water was the better option. Zhao Xinqing looked at the tall coconut tree and asked pitifully, but it's so high. You walked to the base of the coconut tree and searched around for a bit before picking up 4 ripe coconuts from the ground and handing them to Zhao Xinqing. We can only have one of these ripe ones each. Although the milky white juice inside is richer in nutrients and electrolytes, drinking too much of it will cause diarrhea. What we really need are the green coconuts. Zhao Xinqing, only half understanding, took the 4 ripe coconuts from your hand. How is one enough? She asked. You first found a sharp piece of rock on the ground. Then you found a thick, flat rock and handed it to Zhao Xinqing, saying, use this sharp stone as a nail. And this thick stone as a hammer. Try to keep the coconut shell intact. You crack the coconuts, and I'll get the green ones. The live comments instantly exploded. Mom, come quick. The rich kid is going to climb a tree. After you fall to your death. Can I inherit your credit card debt and Zhao Xinqing? Coconut trees are tall and huge with straight trunks, making them one of the hardest types of trees to climb. Even Ed Stafford and Bear Grylls never climb coconut trees. But you just chuckled at the comments and said, I'm not going to climb it. You all seem to have forgotten I still have my fishing rod. As you spoke, you waved the fishing rod you'd been holding in front of the drone's camera. With a coconut tree in front of you and a pool of water behind, you became noticeably more talkative. This fishing rod can extend over 30 meters. A little coconut tree is nothing. With that, you began extending the rod. The 1.6-meter rod quickly grew longer in your hands. Soon, it was extended to half its length. You locked the clasps to fix the rod at this length. Sure enough, it could now reach the green coconuts at the top of the tree. You stared intently at the tip of your rod and said, watch closely. The connection point between the coconut and the stem has a very weak spot right near the coconut. As long as you find the right spot with a sharp crack, you forcefully whip the end of the rod. Like a whip, it accurately struck the bottom of a green coconut. The green coconut fell on cue. You turned to the drone camera. The victor's smile. Find the right spot, and you can get it in one hit. Zhao Xinqing was crouching to the side, smashing a coconut. When she saw that you had actually managed to knock down the green coconuts, her beautiful eyes sparkled with excitement, and she started smashing with even more vigor. The bullet comments started pouring in. Is that how you're supposed to use a fishing rod? You have to hit a tiny spot with a rod that's over 10 meters long? That's way too hard. You just watched the bullet comments and smiled without saying a word. As the next wild fishing king, you had long ago reached a state of oneness with your rod. Simply knocking down a few coconuts was nothing. With a series of crisp thwacks that echoed beside the pool, green coconuts fell to the ground one after another. A muffled sloshing sound came from within the thick husks. By the time you reeled in your rod and stood up, there wasn't a single coconut left on that tree. Nearby, Zhao Xinqing had just cracked open a ripe coconut and had only taken one sip. Then she saw you had stripped the tree bare. She hesitated for a moment, then got up and trotted over. Cradling the opened coconut, she handed it to you and whispered, you worked hard. You drink first. You didn't waste any words, taking the coconut and gulping it all down. Zhao Xinqing's eyes widened. She licked her lips and whispered, is it good? You immediately let out a burp and uttered 2 words, so sweet. Is the coconut sweet, or is Dr. Zhao's mouth sweet? Damn, I wouldn't have even noticed if you guys hadn't pointed it out. That was an indirect kiss. That wicked Subai gets away with everything. The bullet comments went wild with teasing. Zhao Xinqing only glanced at them before her pretty face flushed bright red. You let out a chuckle, not bothered at all. Then you took the 2 rocks from Xinqing's hands and said, I'll smash the coconuts. You go gather some tough vines. We'll weave a basket later. Zhao Xinqing replied with an oh. With her head down and her face still red, she jogged off into the nearby woods to find vines. Meanwhile, you cracked open 6 more coconuts. When Zhao Xinqing returned, you gave her 3. Then, you scooped out some of the milky white flesh from a coconut and threaded it onto your fish hook. You were getting ready to start fishing. The attention of the bullet comments quickly shifted to what you were doing. Can there really be fish in this pool? He's using coconut meat as bait? Does he actually know how to fish? You looked at the bullet comments on the tablet, smiled, and said, when you're fishing in the wild, the rule is to use what you have. Because the bait you can easily find is also the food these fish normally get to eat. You get the principle, but fish normally eat coconuts? I'm crying at how dumb this streamer is. The husk is so thick, even a shark would probably complain about it. You sighed at the ignorance of the bullet comments. Nature has its own cycles. This coconut tree grows right by the side of the pool, so the fish in the pool can definitely get to eat coconut from time to time. Besides, have you guys ever heard of something called a coconut crab? It's the largest type of crab, and it feeds on coconuts. What do coconut crabs have to do with the fish in the pool? Don't tell me coconut crabs live in the pool too. If I remember correctly, coconut crabs live on land except when they're laying eggs. While pouring the contents of a cracked open coconut into a corner of the pool near the waterfall, you asked. Then do you know how coconut crabs eat coconuts? Is that even a question? Of course, they use their pincers to crack them open. A coconut crab's pincer can snap a person's finger off. They're incredibly strong, but you shook your head and said, not exactly. The most common method coconut crabs use is to carry a coconut up a tree. Climb to the very top, and then drop the coconut. It keeps dropping the same one, until the shell shatters and exposes the flesh. Now, take a close look at the ground here. Near the woods, the soil is thick, and there are dead branches and fallen leaves that provide a lot of cushioning. The only hard surface is the rock by the pool, and the crown of the coconut tree is located diagonally above this rock. You tilted the drone's camera up, letting the viewers in the live stream see the coconut tree directly above you. The viewers followed the camera's gaze and saw that it was true. And just as you said, this large rock by the side of the pool is the only place where coconut crabs can smash coconut shells. That way, a portion of the smashed coconut falls into the water. It's all very logical. The Danmaku was instantly baffled. Seriously, what did you do before this? How do you know so much? I love watching the streamer school the chat. His knowledge is just incredible. You chuckled softly. Alright, I'll stop talking. Don't want to scare the fish. After you said that, you extended your index finger and traced a few lines on the ground at your feet. It looked like you drew some kind of symbol, then you stepped on it. You had entered the state of Subai, the wild fishing king. It was as if your entire being had become one with the heavy fishing rod in your hands. Your eyes appeared half closed, but all your attention was focused on the float. After just a few minutes, as you watched, your float dipped slightly. You were instantly alert, your eyes flying open, but your body remained as still as a stone statue. It was a fish in the pool, testing your bait, but it hadn't taken the hook yet. You absolutely could not lift the rod at this moment. Otherwise, you'd spook the fish, and catching it today would become extremely difficult. To be honest, you could barely hold this rod anymore. This body was seriously out of practice. The rod in your hands, which could fully extend to 34 meters, was a weight an ordinary person would find impossible to handle. A normal person using a 7 or 8 meter rod would find their arm going sore and numb after holding it for a while. If this were your past life, with the physique of the wild fishing king, you could have easily controlled this rod. But now, your arm wasn't even a third as thick as in your past life. After holding it for just this short time, it was already starting to show signs of trembling. But you knew this was the most crucial moment. You had to hold steady, or your dinner would get away. Relying on the experience and endurance from your transmigration, you pushed yourself far beyond your body's physical limits, keeping the rod in your hand perfectly still, without a single tremor. Just then, the float suddenly plunged downwards. A bite, a glint flashed in your eyes as you flicked the rod upward. The movement was incredibly fast, but very slight, only about half an inch. Then, you lowered the rod again. Someone in the Danmaku who knew about fishing exclaimed, "That technique for setting the hook is masterful. I'm starting to believe the streamer really is the wild fishing king." Never mind anything else, just being able to hold that rod for so long is something an ordinary person could never do. For anyone who hasn't personally handled this model of rod, you just can't comprehend how heavy it is. Setting the hook means jerking the rod the very instant the fish bites. The movement has to be fast and forceful, but the range of motion absolutely cannot be too wide. The purpose of setting the hook is to drive it deep into the fish's mouth so it can't break free. If you lack speed and force, you won't be able to set the hook effectively. But if the motion is too wide, the line will snap. This operation, a matter of millimeters, can show the full extent of an expert angler's skill. The curve of the rod in your hand had changed from its natural arc to a much deeper, rounder one. Clearly, something on the other end of the line was fighting you. As you and the fish struggled against each other through the line, the fish was slowly dragged up from the bottom. A series of splashes erupted on the surface of the water. As the fish struggled frantically, from behind you, you heard Zhao Xinqing's delighted voice. "You really caught one." Dr. Zhao came running back, carrying a bundle of vines. Her eyes were full of anticipation as she looked into the pool. But just then, you suddenly frowned and muttered, "This fish doesn't seem right. Why does it have legs?" Amid the splashing, two short, stubby hind legs could be clearly seen, struggling and kicking wildly. Her brow furrowed deeply, and you asked, "We're not in China, are we?" Zhao Xinqing shook her head. "No, this deserted island doesn't belong to any country." You finally let out a sigh of relief. "Alright, that's good." Meanwhile, the comments were popping up, asking, "What kind of fish is it?" "I see legs. Is it a turtle?" You glanced at the comments on Zhao Xinqing's tablet and answered casually. "This is a giant salamander, commonly known as a baby fish. In China, it's illegal to catch wild ones. Otherwise, you could get a life sentence. But we're not in China. So, it's fair game." Holy crap, what kind of luck is that? The very first cast is a legendary level catch. Streamer, why aren't you pulling it in yet? Hurry up and let us see what the legendary baby fish looks like." The splashing on the water's surface was already much weaker than before. Giant salamander you hooked must have been exhausted. At this moment, you said calmly, "Don't rush it. We need to let the giant salamander tire out a bit more." When it's in danger, its skin has glands that secrete a foul-smelling substance to ward off predators. Letting it flush out these secretions will make it taste better, and there will be less slime on its skin. After letting the giant salamander struggle in the water for nearly 5 minutes, you finally managed to pull it out. The giant salamander was rock gray all over, with a large, flat head and short, stubby limbs. It was quite ugly. As it came out of the water, it made a sound like a baby crying. Zhao Xinqing stood by, ready with a rock in her hand. She asked nervously, "Should I smash its head?" Giant salamanders seem vicious, they can bite. You shook your head and said, "Not yet. Let's check if it's male or female, and if it has eggs. If it's a female with eggs, we'll let it go." The comments were a bit speechless. He's being picky even in a survival situation? Someone should watch more of Ed Stafford's videos. Seeing this, you casually explained, "We won't be short on food, so we can afford to be selective." A simple sentence, yet filled with immense confidence. Come on, isn't it a bit arrogant? Even Bear Grylls and Ed Stafford wouldn't dare say they're guaranteed not to lack food before starting out. To the person above, Bear Grylls and Ed Stafford are survival experts. But that doesn't mean they're the best when it comes to just finding food. Before the hunter, Lindsay, set out, he also told his partner they wouldn't lack food. You used the fish hook to hold the giant salamander's mouth, making sure the ferocious carnivore couldn't attack you. You then lifted its tail, took a look, and said, "It's a male." Zhao Xinqing leaned in curiously and asked, "How can you tell?" As a zoology PhD, Zhao Xinqing had a strong desire to learn about this. So, holding its tail, you explained, "Around the male's cloaca, there are some milky white, raised little bumps." Zhao Xinqing immediately understood. The comments went completely off the rails. "Wait a minute, that shape looks a bit like one of those mysterious male toys." "Listen to me. I have a bold idea." The comments erupted in laughter again. Meanwhile, you swiftly brought the stone down, killing the giant salamander. Placing it aside, you started weaving a rattan basket with Zhao Xinqing. Like a spider web, first lay out the vertical supports. Then, wind the rattan horizontally around them. Yes, just like that. We'll use these vines and coconut shells to carry some fresh water. At this point, the comments, still wanting more, asked, "Aren't you going to fish anymore?" "Just a little longer." To this, you shook your head and said, "The giant salamander's scent glands will affect this area. And the other fish in these waters won't bite. It's probably pointless to keep fishing, so let's not waste time. We need to find a place to set up camp before dark." And as they watched you and Zhao Xinqing weave the rattan basket, the comments started their own conversation. Did the hunter Lindsay also say they wouldn't lack food before setting out? How's his catch so far? Is it more than the billionaire teams? Soon, another comment answered the question. Reliable intel here, bros. The hunter Lindsay's gear is a slingshot. Right now, he's got 4 small squirrels, 2 birds, and a snake tied to his waist. But they haven't found water yet, so Lindsay is getting anxious. Wait, Lindsay chose a slingshot? Why doesn't the production team give us bows and arrows? Noticing this question, you casually answered, "If there were bows and arrows, I'd choose them too. Bows are pretty much the pinnacle of cold weapons. If an old hunter like Lindsay had a bow and arrow, he'd instantly become the most terrifying predator on this deserted island. The rest of us would basically have no hope of winning." "Huh? You're so good at fishing, you'd choose a bow and arrow too?" You chuckled, waving the vine in your hand. "I can catch big ones with this thing too. But I can't fight a tiger with this thing." Peeved, we praise you a little and you start showing off. "I don't believe you can catch a big fish with a vine." You looked at the chat and chuckled. "If you don't believe me, I'll show you when I have time. I once gathered materials on the banks of the Nile River, made a hook and line, tied it to a dead branch, and caught a crocodile. When it comes to bragging, the streamer is the best. Nile crocodiles can grow up to 700 kilograms. Yeah, keep bragging. If you can catch one, I'll eat my computer." You stopped chatting with the viewers. The vine in your hand was quickly woven into a basket. Then, you submerged the empty coconuts in the pool, filling them with fresh water. You then plugged the smashed holes with dry leaves and placed them upright in the vine basket. In total, you were carrying the fresh water from 6 coconuts, which was very heavy. As you hoisted it onto your back, you felt your body sink. Moving through the jungle is already strenuous. After half a day, you were already completely exhausted. With the added weight of these 6 coconuts, your legs suddenly felt weak, and you could barely walk. The chat immediately noticed your weakness and started mocking you at full blast. With that kind of stamina, you went to the Nile basin and caught crocodiles? You can't even walk 2 steps. You must be going to deliver a meal to the crocodiles. Zhao Xinqing looked at your stumbling back and couldn't help but say with some concern, "Subai, let's weave another basket. I'll help you carry half." "No need, just help me hold the fishing rod and our dinner." You handed the heavy fishing rod and the big fish to Zhao Xinqing. "Are you really okay?" Zhao Xinqing followed behind you. her pretty face full of worry. When there's enough food, I can properly train this body. There are still many hard days ahead. You knew from deep experience just how hard true wilderness survival could be. In your past life as the king of wild fishing, you had only attempted wilderness survival this grueling a handful of times. After that, whenever you went wild fishing, you always drove an off-road vehicle, bringing a shotgun and 4 dogs. But now, you had nothing but a pretty girl. Thinking about it that way didn't seem like such a bad deal. You glanced again at Zhao Xinqing's beautiful, sweat-drenched face beside you. Your mood immediately lifted. The chat saw that you and Zhao Xinqing were focused on traveling and weren't looking at the comments anymore, so they started chatting among themselves. Where are the scouts? I'm too lazy to switch streams. What's the situation with the other 4 teams from Shenzhou Nation? Here, frontline report. The hunter team hasn't found water yet and is on the verge of dying from thirst. The mountaineer team found a stream and is preparing to set up camp and build a fire by the water. The soldier king team spent over 20 minutes collecting shells on the beach. The army doctor, Shen Xiaoyue, spent time on the way gathering herbs. It slowed them down a lot, but Shen Xiaoyue found a birch tree. She used an entrenching tool to get some sap to drink, so they aren't short on water for now. Meanwhile, the survival expert team is still on the beach collecting shells. 4.5 hours after the show started recording, the members of Shenzhou Nation's Team 4 finally straightened their sore backs on the beach. Look at all these shells. And 2 abalones and 1 sea cucumber. Who was it that said Wang, would starve on this show? A slightly chubby young man said, his face beaming with excitement. He pointed at the large pile of seafood on the beach, showing off for the drone camera. He was none other than the member of Team 4 known as Wang, the survival expert. The wilderness survival scene in Shenzhou Nation had always been rather quiet. If you had to name any celebrities, it would be Team 4's survival expert Wang, Peng Peng, and the camping guru Luo Zuner. With the full backing of their respective teams, in the content they filmed themselves. In his videos, he was portrayed as incredibly brave, even hyped up by fans as an invincible being who could take on Ed Stafford and Bear Grylls. Over time, Wang and Luo Zuner seemed to get used to life in the spotlight. Just as Wang was looking at the tablet in his hand, ready to welcome the praise from the bullet comments, a huge wave of comments suddenly flooded in, pushing the number of viewers in his livestream room from 300,000 to 330,000. Wang, run, Su Bai said, if you don't get into the jungle soon, you're going to die of thirst. Why are you guys still on the beach? Oh my god. Wang was stunned for a moment. Su Bai, that last place rich kid? On what grounds do you guys think some rich kid can give me, Wang, advice on a wilderness survival project? Didn't you see how much Luo Zuner and I have gathered? Wang then deliberately aimed the drone's camera at the pile of seashells he had stacked on the beach. The bullet comments that had flooded in from your stream, however, all started talking at once, asking, let me just ask you, are you thirsty or not? Are you and Luo Zuner planning on drinking seawater? Su Bai was right. What a noob, just collecting shells. Hey noob, I came to see you. In fact, Su Bai had never said the words the noob is picking shells. But the bullet comments didn't care. They just decided he had. Hearing this, Wang instantly became furious. Before he became a huge hit in wilderness survival, he was just an ordinary university student. It was wilderness survival that gave him everything he had now, gave him a handsome income of nearly $1 million a year. He would never allow anyone in the field of wilderness survival to call him a noob. I'm a noob? You're calling me a noob? Wang's enraged voice echoed across the beach. His face flushed with anger as he roared, where are the mods? Mods, ban all these trolls who are flooding my stream. With drama, ban anyone who calls me a noob. The bullet comments immediately burst into laughter. Impotent rage, ha ha ha. He's tilted, he's so mad. Just as Wang was stomping his feet in anger, a slightly effeminate voice came from behind him. What's wrong? Look how angry you are. Luo Zuner walked into Wang's shot from behind. In his left hand, he held a starfish, waving it at the camera. He said in a cheerful tone, we had a great harvest today. Don't tell me people are even flaming you for this? Luo Zuner was a slender young man. He had a tinfoil perm, dark skin, and bluish dark circles under his lifeless eyes, looking as if he could never get enough sleep. Like Wang, he was also an internet celebrity in the country's wilderness survival scene. He was an old hand at this kind of live streaming. Wang, as if he had found an ally, deliberately let out 2 exaggerated laughs. Then he pointed at the camera and said with a smile to Luo Zuner behind him, a bunch of bullet comments from that rich kid's stream came over and said we're noobs. It made me laugh. Luo Zuner tossed the starfish in his hand onto the pile of shells and also looked at his tablet. Sure enough, there were also some viewers in his stream who had flooded in from your stream, mocking him. So, he said in a sarcastic, passive-aggressive tone, Peng and I are the twin stars of wilderness survival in this country. In this country's lineup this time, besides the big bro, Soldier King, I should be solidly in 2nd or 3rd place. Our rivals are Bear Grylls and Ed Stafford. Please don't compare a rich kid to the two of us. As Luo Zuner spoke, he wiped the sticky sweat from his forehead and unconsciously licked his dry lips. At this point, the fans the two had previously accumulated also began to fight back. Go back and watch your rich kid. What are you doing spamming here? If that rich kid can survive in the wild for 10 days, I'll eat my keyboard. But the fans who had flooded in refused to back down and retorted sarcastically. Have you had any water yet? What are you planning to drink? Yeah, try not to lick your lips. Seeing these bullet comments, Luo Zuner's expression froze. Crap, I was too excited about collecting shells that I actually forgot about that. Having made wilderness survival videos for so long, Luo Zuner did know a thing or two about survival knowledge. He was very clear on the importance of water, but he subconsciously ignored the fact that not only was there no fresh water on the beach, but he'd also lose sweat at an alarming rate. Because when they were filming videos before, even though only Luo Zuner was on screen, off camera, his team would have everything prepared. The supply truck would have over 10 cases of mineral water for the taking. And what really pleased the audience and made the video go viral were big game, or weird and exotic foods that the streamer claimed were delicious. After shooting these kinds of videos for so long, the moment Wang and Luo Zuner landed on the beach, they were captivated by the dazzling array of seashells. Meanwhile, Wang's initial angry growl had slowly faded. The two of them exchanged a subtle glance, and both saw the regret in each other's eyes. The comments in the chat were right. They really needed to find water. If they couldn't, the two of them might not even make it through the night. Wang suddenly let out a cold laugh. It's just water, isn't it? For me and Luo Zuner, how hard can finding water be? With that, his eyes quickly started scanning the edge of the jungle on the other side of the beach. As he searched, Wang prayed inwardly, coconuts, coconuts. Please, heavens, give me a coconut tree. Just one coconut tree is all I need to shut down everyone in the chat. After scanning the area, Wang's expression began to fall. It was such a huge stretch of beach. Yet there wasn't a single coconut tree. The chat also noticed the change in Wang's expression. The chat instantly erupted with mockery. Are you looking for coconuts? Don't bother. I already checked for you guys. There are no coconut trees on this beach. The two streamers looked completely embarrassed, pretending to focus on other things, trying to change the subject in the chat. But without a moderator to help, that tactic clearly wasn't working. Commenters, knowing they wouldn't get banned, spammed even harder. Meanwhile, elsewhere, you and Zhao Xinqing moved a short distance from the stream, carefully surveying the environment as you went. Suddenly, you stopped. This should be the spot. You looked at a large tree nearby, then down at the lay of the land. This spot is good, you said thoughtfully. Zhao Xinqing nodded, seeming to only half understand. She put down her basket and glanced at the chat, noticing that the trolls had already started their attack. What's so great about this spot? I don't see what's so special about it. The streamer should really stop trying to act like an expert. Picking a bad spot for a camp can get you killed. Dr. Zhao got really angry seeing these comments. But you just glanced at the chat, sighed, and pointed at the ground. This is a sunny, leeward slope with lots of small trees. It's a ways from the water, so there should be fewer mosquitoes. Since the slope faces the sun, it should also be less humid. It'll be easier to find material for a fire, and with that big tree nearby, there are plenty of dead branches and fallen leaves. Also, I never called Wang a noob. Those commenters who were spamming insults earlier were silenced by just a few words from you, but your fans immediately jumped in to fire back. Keep it coming. Why do you stop? Is the spot our streamer picked not professional enough for you? You little noobs who follow those two amateur streamers, watch and learn. You'll never understand the world of the rich. Seeing the stream's atmosphere return to normal, you nodded in satisfaction. Then you put down your tablet and asked Zhao Xinqing, do you know how to make rope from bark? Zhao Xinqing paused for a second, then nodded eagerly. I do, but I have this. As she spoke, she pulled a handful of long, slender, sharp green leaves from her basket. These are sisal leaves. The tips have sharp, reddish-brown spines. The fibers in the leaf connected to the spine are straight and tough, like a natural needle and thread. They're also great for making rope. I can make a rope in 2 minutes, Zhao Xinqing said, finding a spot to sit down. Then she started twisting a rope from sisal leaves. Her small hands were as nimble as butterflies flitting through flowers. In a blur of motion, a rope quickly took shape between her fingers, growing longer and longer at a rapid pace. You watched for a moment and realized that when it came to the single skill of rope making, there was truly nothing you could teach Zhao Xinqing. So, you lowered your head and began to search carefully on the ground. Soon, you came back with a few stones. As you picked them up, you also explained to the drone camera behind you. Even though this is a sun-facing slope, there are a lot of fallen leaves on the ground, and the soil is still a bit damp. If you want to make a fire by drilling wood in this kind of environment, you first need a dry base. Otherwise, all your effort could easily be for nothing. You pointed to a surface in your hand. A dry, flat stone slab, and said, on a sun-facing slope. It's relatively easy to find a dry stone slab like this that's been baked by the sun. After we have a dry base, we also need 2 pieces of relatively dry wood. You looked up at the large tree beside you and reached out to adjust the drone's live stream camera, bringing the tall treetop into the frame, and trying to find dry wood in a damp environment like this. To use for a fire drill is extremely difficult. The best option isn't on the ground, but up in the air. What we're looking for is something that has fallen from a branch, but was caught by other branches and leaves instead of falling to the ground. A dead branch that gets plenty of sunlight during the day. You pointed to the treetop of the large tree. Through the foliage, you could faintly see a short branch, about the thickness of a forearm, stuck between 2 larger boughs. It had no leaves, and its angle was different from the other branches. It was clearly a dead branch that had broken off some time ago. This requires a bit of luck, and it's also one of the reasons I chose to make camp here. As you spoke, you began to extend your fishing rod. Getting a branch down from this high up requires a certain technique. Watch, I'll extend the fishing line. Then, I'll make a noose near the rod, similar to the kind of snare trap used to hunt rabbits in the wild. You tied a slip knot at the end of the line, demonstrating for the camera. Once I loop this over that branch, I'll pull the end of the line from down here. The noose will tighten, securing it, and then I can pull the branch down. Hearing your explanation, the live stream comments erupted. An expert. This is definitely an expert. That ability to adapt to the environment and be so flexible, you absolutely can't do that without a massive amount of accumulated knowledge. Anyone who's still not convinced, speak up. Hey, you fans from that other streamer's channel. Your streamer can't even compare to a rich kid, huh? While you were using the fishing rod and line to snare the high dry branch, Zhao Xinqing had already finished weaving a grass rope. The rope in her hands was over a meter long, which should be enough for a bow drill. Zhao Xinqing thought for a moment, set down the grass rope, and began searching the area. She soon found a branch with a natural curve to it. This branch was about as thick as a middle finger and, as expected, was very damp to the touch. If you were to use a branch like this for the drill itself, you could probably work at it your whole life and never generate enough heat. But its curve made it an excellent material for the bow part of a bow drill. There are different ways to make fire by drilling wood. The most basic method is rubbing with your palms, which is very difficult. Even survival experts can easily rub their palms raw without producing a single spark. In a damp environment like this one, that method is even less advisable. Another, more common method is the bow drill. Besides the spindle and the fireboard, you also need a grass rope and a curved branch. You tie the grass rope to the curved branch at both ends to form a bow. Then, you wrap the rope around the friction spindle. By pulling the bow, you can make the spindle rotate, generating heat through friction. This is a more efficient way of making fire by drilling wood. When you asked Zhao Xinqing to weave the grass rope, she knew you were planning to use this method to start a fire in a damp environment. Took you about 5 minutes to carefully loop and bring down that dead branch from the tree. Meanwhile, Zhao Xinqing used that time not only to assemble the bow drill, but also to gather some dry leaves and small twigs from the ground. After a full day under the sun, these materials felt relatively dry to the touch. If we can light a small fire with these dry leaves and toothpick-sized twigs, then the heat from the flames should be enough to ignite the larger, damper pieces of firewood. You and Zhao Xinqing split up in the woods to find some suitable firewood. As expected, any firewood you found on the ground felt damp as soon as you picked it up. At least, the side touching the ground was damp. Alright, let's get started. This should be enough firewood for the night. You had Zhao Xinqing sit across from you and gave her serious instructions. Even with everything going for us, if I were here alone, I'd most likely choose not to start a fire tonight, because it's just really difficult. But there are 2 of us. Making a fire with a bow drill is much easier with 2 people than 1. The key to making fire with a drill is building up enough heat between the 2 pieces of wood. Once you have an ember, you can ignite the tinder. Most failures are because a person's upper arm muscles often can't provide enough endurance to generate the necessary heat. But since there are 2 of us, we can take turns. When I get tired, you take over immediately. Let's aim to get it on the first try. Zhao Xinqing listened attentively, but at that moment, someone in the live comments suddenly spoke up to stop you. Wait, are you an idiot? You forgot something really important, didn't you? There's the tinder. Without tinder, are you just going to light the wood directly with an ember? You're so unreliable. You act like a pro, but you don't even know the basics? You took a closer look and recognized several of the names. Sure enough, it was the trolls from Wang and Luo Zuner's stream. Causing trouble again. Tinder is a dry, finely shredded material used for starting fires. It needs a large surface area exposed to the air, otherwise the ember created by the fire drill alone won't be able to ignite the wood directly. The most classic tinder is a bundle of dry grass. Bird nests and wood shavings can also serve as good tinder. And precisely because it has such a large surface area, tinder absorbs moisture very easily. Once it gets damp, it's useless. But in an environment like this, where could you possibly find tinder? You let out a soft chuckle. Calmly, you took out a handful of fluffy, dark black material from your back basket. Then, holding it up for the camera, you grinned mischievously and said, "Take a look." "What do you think this is?" Live comments went silent for a moment before someone ventured, "Is that coconut husk?" The husk from a ripe coconut is fluffy and dry. Once stripped, it makes for excellent tinder. Back when you were at the pool, you had already thought to grab some husk from those ripe coconuts and carried it all the way here. And since you and Zhao Xinqing had been traveling along the stream, the ample sunlight had been shining into your back basket. This had been evaporating any remaining moisture from the coconut husk along the way. Now, holding the husk, you could feel that it was satisfyingly dry. "That's right, this is my tinder." In front of a dimly glowing computer screen, a middle-aged, overweight man cried out in anger. His pudgy hand slammed down hard on his ash-covered computer desk. How is this Subai prepared for everything? Why is a rich kid so good at wilderness survival? This middle-aged man, trembling with anger, was the very same Jia Junji who had come over from Wang Peng's stream. Into your stream. As a die-hard fan of Wang Peng, the man absolutely couldn't stand anyone calling his favorite streamer a noob. But after watching your stream for the last few hours, you had predicted everything with uncanny accuracy, looking for all the world like a grandmaster of wilderness survival. Every single one of his taunts had been ruthlessly shut down by the facts you presented. Even through the distance of the internet, the middle-aged chubby guy still felt his cheeks flush red and hot, as if he'd just been slapped twice. Meanwhile, on the live stream, as your right hand kept rapidly pulling the bow drill, the spindle spun continuously with the bow drill's movement. Wisps of blue-green smoke started rising from where the spindle and the fireboard made contact. The bullet chat instantly erupted with excitement. It's smoking, bros. Reliable intel says he's the first of the 100 people in the show to successfully make fire. You have to know, even Ed Stafford and Bear Grylls gave up on making fire today. Brother Suzy, you're my idol for life from now on. You weren't affected by the bullet chat and continued to rapidly pull the bow drill. As the spindle spun faster, the blue-green smoke grew thicker. Zhao Xinqing couldn't help but widen her beautiful eyes and whisper, "There's still no fire yet?" "But there's so much smoke." You shook your head and said in a low voice, "The thick smoke means it's damp. I'm at my limit. You take over in a second. I'll hold it down for you." You use one hand and pull hard. "Don't stop, no matter what." Zhao Xinqing, her face tense with nervousness, nodded. "Okay, I'll do my best." You pulled a couple more times, your arm feeling incredibly sore. Then, the moment you let go, you whispered, "Now." Zhao Xinqing reacted instantly, grabbing the bow drill from the other side. She mimicked your earlier movements and continued drilling. The bullet chat was a bit confused. It's still not working? With that much smoke, you're not about to start a forest fire, are you? You guys above, stop talking. Watch and learn carefully. On screen, you showed no intention of stopping at all. When Zhao Xinqing was exhausted, you immediately took over again, continuing to pull the bow drill with your somewhat recovered arm. After switching with Zhao Xinqing back and forth twice more, you finally lifted the bow drill and the spindle. At that moment, all 120,000 viewers in the livestream widened their eyes, staring at the notch in the fireboard. In that notch, a single, dark red ember was burning quietly. Wisps of smoke rose from it. "Yay, we have fire, we have fire." Zhao Xinqing let out a suppressed shriek. She felt like her heart was about to leap right out of her throat. Not since she received her first doctorate had she ever felt this kind of excitement. The bullet chat also exploded in celebration. "Holy crap, that's F***ing awesome. Something even Ed Stafford and Bear Grylls wouldn't dare to do. Was done by a rich kid." You were also incredibly excited, but had no time to shout. With extremely gentle movements, you tipped the ember from the fireboard's notch onto a piece of dry coconut husk. The tiny ember fell from the notch, and as it landed on the coconut husk, its glow suddenly dimmed. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Oh no, did it go out? But your expression remained calm. You cupped the coconut husk in your hands, held it in front of you, and then gently blew on the faint ember. After you blew on it twice, the ember, which had started to fade, began to glow brightly again. Tiny sparks scattered and danced within the coconut husk with your breath. Finally, it ignited the dry, woody fibers of the husk. A thick column of smoke billowed from the coconut husk in your hands. Seeing this, you struck while the iron was hot and quickly blew a couple more times. With a soft whoosh, a sound came from the coconut husk. A wisp of flame shot up, engulfing the coconut husk. Zhao Xinqing had already prepared a dry slate, where she had built a small pile of dry twigs and dead leaves, just waiting for the kindling in your hands to light it. You gently placed the burning coconut husk next to the small pile. The spreading flames quickly ignited the pile of twigs and leaves as well. The orange-red flame grew at a visible rate. You and Zhao Xinqing could both feel a wave of heat wash over your faces. Just as you placed 2 pieces of firewood into the fire and were about to breathe a sigh of relief, you suddenly heard Zhao Xinqing whisper, "Hey, why is the fire getting smaller?" You take a closer look and see the 2 logs you put in the fire. The fire had instantly shrunk by half, and large plumes of thick smoke were rising from the logs. But it was obvious the wood itself hadn't caught fire. Your heart sank as you frowned and sighed. Is it still not working? The wood is too damp, maybe we should just give up. In a place this humid, starting a fire is incredibly difficult. You've already done every step as perfectly as you could. If the wood itself is unusable, then there's nothing more you can do. Wait, I have an idea. You, blow on it a couple more times. Zhao Xinqing suddenly jumped up and rushed frantically toward the small patch of woods where she had looked for firewood earlier. You were stunned for a moment, then quickly bent down and blew on the embers. With the sudden increase in airflow, the flame, which was on the verge of extinguishing, flared back to life for a moment. But blowing on it was just a temporary fix. If the wood couldn't ignite, just blowing wouldn't last for long, and it would eventually die out. As you blew, you glanced up at Zhao Xinqing's retreating figure. You saw Zhao Xinqing pick something up from the ground and immediately head back. Before you could get a clear look at what she had picked up, she placed a round, ping-pong ball-sized object into the fire. As soon as this round thing entered the fire, the already precarious flame was almost completely extinguished by the impact. But in the very next moment, a bright flame shot up directly from that round object. It burned fiercely, and a pleasant, fresh scent drifted out from the flames. Zhao Xinqing tossed in 3 more of the small spheres, and the fire grew even larger. And now, those 2 logs that had been producing thick smoke but simply refused to ignite, finally had all their moisture baked away. They made a crackling sound, and began to burn in the flames. What kind of magic is this? No magic in front of muggles. Zhao Xinqing, are you a witch? You were just as baffled. Looking down at the roaring flames, you asked, what is this stuff? Zhao Xinqing chuckled and said, it's resin from a black locust tree. I saw that tree when I was gathering firewood earlier. Resin is an excellent fire starter. It burns intensely when it hits an open flame. You exclaimed in genuine awe, that's incredible. That saying knowledge's power is really true. The live comments section went wild, flooding the screen with awesome. Awesome, awesome, seriously, of all the streams I've watched today, these 2 have the best teamwork. I'm crying, Dr. Zhao is such a treasure. I'm going to study botany from now on. Once the fire was stable, you told Zhao Xinqing to watch over it. You took the bamboo pit viper and the large snake back to the river. You used a sharp rock to slice open the abdomens of both creatures. Of all the internal organs, you only kept the large heart. Just then, a comment popped up. Can't you keep those organs for fish bait? Such a waste. You nodded, holding up the large heart in your hand, and said, this is enough for bait. Any more would be pointless. A scent of blood that's too strong would just attract other creatures. After a quick rinse, you carried the large snake and the bamboo pit viper back to the camp. Zhao Xinqing had already picked a handful of berries and placed them on a piece of fresh bark. She had also found 2 branches with sharp points from somewhere. Seeing you return with dinner, Zhao Xinqing waved the branches in her hand and gave you a sweet smile. I even prepared the skewers for grilling. But you shook your head and said, we can't grill it like that. We need to steam it in an earth oven. Then, you dug a pit in the ground. You wrapped the large snake and the bamboo pit viper in 2 separate bundles of palm leaves and placed them in the pit. You covered them with a thin layer of loose soil, and then you moved the entire fire directly on top of the pit. As you worked, you explained, grilling heats food very unevenly. Sometimes the legs are burnt before the belly is cooked. Other times the skin is charred, but the meat inside is still raw and bloody. Unlike domesticated animals like cows and sheep, when eating wild game, the heat must penetrate completely through all the tissue. That's the only way to completely kill any germs and parasites. We don't have a pot for stewing, so we can only roast it. It'll take at least 3 hours to cook. Let's build a shelter in the meantime. Soon enough, you'd sent Zhao Xinqing into the woods to keep looking for vines. Meanwhile, you were in the middle of a few small trees, clearing away the piles of dead branches and fallen leaves with your feet. These small trees were about 1 square meter apart from each other and only a few meters from the fire. And it was over 10 meters from the patch of woods where Zhao Xinqing was looking for vines. Is he planning to build the camp here? These little trees are really in the way. What's he planning to do? You cleared the dead branches and fallen leaves from the area. Then you got up and picked some wide palm leaves. After doing that, you placed 2 coconuts by the edge of the fire. You planned to use the heat from the fire to boil the water inside the coconuts. Before long, Zhao Xinqing came back, carrying 2 thick, tough vines. So, what's the plan now? The chat was also on the edge of their seats, typing furiously in the livestream. Tell us, how are you going to build a camp with a few vines? Seeing this, you pointed to the area you had just cleared by the small trees and said, we'll use the vines to tie these trees together. Make the flexible trunks bend to form a dome, then we can just cover it with the palm leaves. With your explanation, everyone quickly understood the camp you had planned. What the hell? This is way too simple. You're just phoning it in, which makes it hard for us as your fans. But Zhao Xinqing didn't have any objections. She immediately started working with you. She had been walking with you all day and was physically and mentally exhausted. She really needed a good rest. Whether the camp looked good or not really didn't matter anymore. In just 2 or 3 minutes, the small trees were tied together by you and Zhao Xinqing. With their tops pressed tightly together, the lower trunks stretched outwards, propping up a small space. You hastily laid the palm leaves on top. And just like that, the little tree shelter was finished. It was less like a nest and more like a bed quilt. The narrow space under the branches and leaves was just big enough for 2 people to lie down pressed tightly together. There was barely even room to turn over. During the few minutes it took to build, the chat was constantly flaming you. They thought that with such a simple camp, you'd definitely run into wolves, snakes, rats, ants, centipedes, grasshoppers, and a whole host of other troubles at night. But when the small tree shelter was actually finished, the chat collectively fell into a strange silence. A rare moment of quiet appeared on the screens of both live streams. After a few seconds of silence, the comments started flooding in, praising your cleverness and courage. This damn treehouse, if it were an inch narrower, Zhao Xinqing would have to sleep separately from him. If it were an inch wider, Zhao Xinqing wouldn't have to sleep in his arms. This rich kid is so damn slick. This was definitely premeditated. He's trying to make a move. Seeing the comments get more and more outrageous, you simply turned off the tablet. You walked over to the fire with a slight smile and said, "Sit down, have some water, and rest for a bit." Zhao Xinqing nodded, her face blushing. She took small steps over to your side and sat down. The water inside the coconut shells had now boiled. The two of you waited a little longer to make sure there were no bacteria left inside. Only then did you each start sipping it. Building this tree shelter camp didn't take the two of you very long. However, making fire with the hand drill and preparing the materials beforehand had taken nearly 2 hours in total. It was now 6 o'clock in the evening, and the sky had unknowingly grown dark. Surrounded by the small forest, the moonlight seemed very hazy. The orange-red glow of the fire stretched your and Zhao Xinqing's shadows out long. The fire crackled softly, and the heat it gave off drove away the insects, giving the two of you a peaceful and quiet area. You and Zhao Xinqing sat idly by the fire. After drinking your fill of hot water, fatigue and hunger, now without any distractions, began to wash over the both of you. Zhao Xinqing swallowed, looking at the fire and the slightly raised mound of dirt beneath it, and asked, "Is it not ready yet?" A bamboo pit viper and a large rat were still cooking under the fire. You reached out and grabbed a handful of berries that Zhao Xinqing had collected earlier. You handed half to Zhao Xinqing, then shook your head and said, "No, we absolutely can't rush this. We can go hungry for a few days and be fine. But if we eat something bad and get sick, it'll be very hard to pull through." Zhao Xinqing stared eagerly at the fire, popping the berries into her mouth one by one and chewing. You, on the other hand, just shoved a large handful into your mouth and swallowed them in a few gulps. Seeing this, Zhao Xinqing helplessly tapped you and said in a low voice, "You have to chew properly. It's such a waste to eat like that." She had noticed on the way that you ate berries very carelessly, but she hadn't found a chance to say anything. You, however, paused for a moment before speaking. "It's not like we're short on food." Although both streamers were tacitly avoiding the live comments, the chat quickly flew by in the stream, agreeing with you. Yeah, a snake and a big rat. The two of them might not even finish it all in one meal. Who cares about a few berries? That's true, but these were handpicked by Dr. Zhao, after all. So of course, they should be savored properly. The chat was still completely caught up in the teasing atmosphere, but Zhao Xinqing shook her head with a serious expression. "That's not it. We can get a lot of protein and a small amount of fat from our prey, but it's hard for us to get carbohydrates, which are starches and sugars, as well as other trace elements. The human body is more advanced compared to other animals, but its needs are also much greater. If even one of those needs isn't met, it can easily lead to a total collapse of the body's functions. The berries might seem insignificant, but they actually provide us with the bare minimum of carbohydrates, vitamins, and trace elements. Eating them the way you did, the nutrients you absorb are probably only 1/4 or 1/5 of what I get. It's really a waste." A series of question marks instantly flew across the screen. Wait, weren't they just having a romantic moment? Why did Teacher Zhao suddenly start a class? You were a bit stunned listening to Zhao Xinqing's words. Then you nodded in sudden understanding. That makes sense. You followed her example, placing the berries into your mouth one by one to chew. By around 8 or 9 at night, Zhao Xinqing was so tired she was dozing off by the fire, her head slumping onto your shoulder several times. Only then did you move the fire aside and dig out the steaming hot dinner from underneath. After 3 hours of heat conducted from the flames above, the bamboo pit viper and the large rat were cooked until their fat was dripping, and a rich, meaty aroma rose from the fire. Zhao Xinqing instantly perked up, her wide, beautiful eyes shimmering with anticipation. You then tore off half of the snake and handed it to Zhao Xinqing. She was already starving and immediately bit into the steaming snake meat. The cooked protein and amino acids mixed together, creating a wonderful flavor that exploded on her taste buds. She let out a long, satisfied sigh, her beautiful eyes curving into 2 crescent moons as she smiled. So good. This bamboo pit viper had no extra seasoning. But its strength was in the freshness of the ingredient itself. The palm leaves wrapped around it also added a light fragrance to the meat, making it quite palatable. Because it was cooked by simmering under the fire, the skin of the two animals wasn't burnt or bitter. In this current survival situation, you couldn't ask for more. After the two of you finished the bamboo pit viper and the large rat, the atmosphere by the fire once again became awkward. Zhao Xinqing's face was flushed with embarrassment, and she didn't dare to look at you. She just stared blankly at the dirt beneath her feet. And in the two live streams, the chat started stirring the pot again. They're done eating, time for bed. A petition of 10,000 people for them to share a bed. During this time, neither you nor Zhao Xinqing had looked at the live comments. But even without looking, you both knew exactly what kind of scene was unfolding in the stream right now. Finally, you added 2 more logs to the fire, cleared your throat, and said in a low voice. It's getting late. We should get some sleep.